The term Cold War was coined by George Orwell, and it was named Cold War because it was not a war, rather an era. This war was fought on political, economic, and propaganda fronts. On 17 July 1945, as World War II comes to an end, US President Harry Truman, Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin, and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill met to decide an ideological and strategic dispute of Europe. America feared that spread of communism threatens their freedom because communism is a system of government based on oppression and loss of individual liberty. For the expansion of communism, Joseph Stalin engineered elections in Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and orchestrated coup in Czechoslovakia. In Cold War, the two belligerent or two opponents were NATO and Warsaw. North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO has 30 members now. In 1949, there were 12 founding members of the alliance that included Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States. But later, Greece, Turkey, and West Germany joined the alliance to defend any aggression collectively. To neutralize the power of NATO, Warsaw Pact was created on 14 May 1955, immediately after the accession of West Germany that sooner became part of NATO. The Warsaw Pact was a collective defense treaty established by the Soviet Union and seven other Soviet satellite states in Central and Eastern Europe, which included Albania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Hungary, Poland, and Romania, while Albania withdrew in 1968. It was called Warsaw because it was signed in Warsaw. The Warsaw Pact was referred to as the Eastern Bloc, while NATO and its member countries represented the Western Bloc. NATO and the Warsaw Pact were ideologically opposed and over time built up their own defenses, starting an arms race that lasted throughout the Cold War. If you have watched a movie Trumbo, you would know the impact of Cold War, that how it destroyed the careers of people in United States under the garb of McCarthyism. McCarthyism is the name given to the period when Senator Joseph McCarthy abused his power to frame his adversaries as communists in a legal setting to have them blacklisted in their industries. Today, it is the practice of making accusation of subversion or treason, especially when related to communism, without proper regard for evidence. Vietnam War, Berlin War, Cuban Missile Crisis, Bridge of Spies, and space race were all the byproducts of Cold War. On 25 May 1961, John F. Kennedy approved $25 billion investment for space mission, and ultimately Apollo 11 landed on the moon on 20th July 1969, whereas Russian space mission failed. Even Reagan fought communism in Central America. However, the Soviet Union was disintegrating. In response to severe economic problems and growing political ferment in the USSR, Premier Gorbachev took office in 1985 and introduced two policies that redefined Russia's relationship to the rest of the world, that were political openness and economic reform. In 1989, Soviet influence in Eastern Europe waned. Every other communist state in the region replaced its government with a non-communist one. In November of that year, the Berlin Wall, the most visible symbol of the decades-long Cold War, was finally destroyed. Just over 2 years after Reagan had challenged the Soviet premier in a speech at Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, quote unquote, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. By 1991, the Soviet Union itself fallen apart. The Cold War was eventually over.